Well, to many of you joining us, welcome to the family table. I'm Gugu and he's Bongani Chinganda.
You got it.
I got it right.
You got it on one shot.
Awesome.
Cool.
Because I'm all about emphasizing African names. Yeah, awesome. Bongani, I'm glad to be talking to you while engaging with you as we always do.
Yeah.
And that's because we have the special project that we're launching, right?
Yes.
The family table.
Yep.
But tell us what it's about, because I think everyone's quite anxious that here we are sitting at a family table, but there isn't much of a family.
Yes. So it's always been a passion of mine, whereby as an entrepreneur, growing up in the ranks, even being in corporate, I always hated reading books, right? And I always liked hearing people. That was way before podcasts, shows you my age. But I've been wanting, this thing's been in my heart of saying, why can't we have family conversations? Because on a family, you've got failures, you've got successes, you've got people going through different journeys, and it's about just being open. And I think many, and you are into business shows, is that business shows feel like work. I remember when the first time we interacted, but how can we interact with business people, learn from them in a very relaxed environment? Hence the family table. So people watching this or listening to this can have a drink. So let's pour and then we start, right?
I think we should, just to actually show people that this is a interactive space.
Interactive space.
But I'm intrigued. Tell us the story, because there's an interesting way that you pour your whiskey.
Okay. So when I go to a restaurant, right, I always ask for whiskey, double shot. I don't have the shot thing here now. And ice on the side. It's just a thing.
Why ice on the side?
Maybe it makes me feel snobbish, British, in a way. Maybe
you want to feel British.
I don't know, but so that's how I pour my whiskey. So I decided I'm going to have whiskey and you have wine today.
Perfect.
But so the whole thing about the family table is about how do we have conversations. Cheers.
Cheers, cheers, cheers. Eye contact.
Eye contact. Remember to drink.
Yes, sir.
How do we have growth conversations with people in different fields, be it sport, be it banking, be it entertainment? Because I think there's a lot of people who want to learn and grow from people like myself, from people like you, and the guests that we're going to have. So hence family, our South African family. So here's the table, have a seat.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll be hosting a number of people here. But I think it's quite interesting that you say it's about having a conversation with people from different spaces, right?
Yes.
Because the truth is, perhaps we have heard certain sides of their stories before, right? Their growth and their trajectory around their corporate careers, their family lives, the accolades that they usually have. But I think what's quite interesting is that at family tables, as you say, their successes and their failures. And I'm looking forward to hearing more about people's experiences that they never want to talk about, right?
Yes.
The bullying, the depression, the loss of money,
Yes.
and other accolades perhaps that they might even be too scared to talk about.
Yes.
And I think that ties into your journey as well as someone who's been in corporate SA for quite some time.
Yes. So I think the one thing that I've always struggled with is people always tend to look at the final or what people want to show.
Because it's what we believe success is, right? So I'm the anchor, I'm the business presenter, it's the titles, it's the
gram,
awards,
right?
exactly.
But you don't talk about the things that people go through. So as you know my story, one of the things that I love to share, and I do love to share about it, is the struggles that men have with mental health and depression and anxiety. Because I went through it. And when young men and women see me post something on LinkedIn or Facebook, they're like, no, you seem to be doing well, please mentor me. I was like, you do not want to go through what I went through.
Really?
Because what most people want is what they see. They see I'm an MD or Bravado, part of the Brave Group, who are so happily to host us and host the family table here. But they struggle. There's pain.
But let's talk about that, because the truth is, it's not a sexy story for black men specifically to tell, right?
Exactly. So I grew up in Malawi, only boy, mommy's boy. She calls me every day.
Really?
And she's like, what are you doing? I'm like, can I just chill? Like, I'm a 42-year-old man doing my thing, you know? But yeah, so mommy's boy, not sport. I can cook, clean.
Oh, that's nice.
Because I've got 3 boys, so married, 3 boys. So I need to make sure as a man they need to be able to see that a man can do everything in the home. I remember when my kids were born, sorry to digress, I said the only thing that my wife, the two things my wife is going to be able to do for my kids, be it girl or boy, was give birth and breastfeed them.
We need men like you, Bongani.
So I changed nappies. I remember my first child.
What did your friends say?
Funny enough, I'm surrounded by men who feel the same.
Okay.
So I've got friends of mine who change nappies. One of my very close friends has got 2 girls. He is the dad of 2 girls. He does hair.
Wow.
He takes them to the salon. And I think we are a bunch of men who are trying to change a generation. So funny story, firstborn is there. We take him home, and we're changing nappies. So kids always have, and I'll tell you this since you don't have a kid.
I'm the cool aunt, by the way.
Exactly. The day you have, it's going to happen. There's that big poo that they do. Like, it's a proper one. It's like the big one that takes out all the stuff that were in mommy's tummy. So we had dressed him in white, and we were going to his grandmother's place. It was a Saturday.
All right.
And he just farted. And it wasn't a fart. And he was dripping and everything. But changed him, managed to do that. And my wife started traveling. So I remember my wife's friends would ask her to say, who's looking after your son? She'd be like, no, my husband. Like, are you sure? Is he okay? You know, and it's grown to a fact that now my firstborn is 15. Yesterday he was mocking me. He was teaching me how to make spaghetti. He likes to cook.
Okay.
So I was trying to make this recipe of his. So he was busy instructing me, and he's like, oh, remember 2 years ago you taught me how to make an egg, and now I'm the one teaching you. But anyway, so Malawi, mommy's boy, 2 sisters, older and younger. Grew up in a Christian home. Whenever there's a problem, we always prayed. God will sort it out somehow. And that's how I lived life. I went to Zimbabwe to school, ended up at Grahamstown University at Rhodes, started working at Unilever. But when I was working, I always used to ask myself, here's Omo. But why Omo? Who started it? Why are we selling it on behalf of that person?
Oh, so you're curious about the story behind these brands that you're representing.
So I didn't know that was entrepreneurship then, right? I like making deals with friends. I used to like to barter. I used to like selling, but I didn't know that as an entrepreneurship until a certain point. Then I started my own business called Zoa Media. We were doing very well at its peak. We had SAB, Hollard, Colgate, and a couple of other businesses as clients. Vodacom was one of them. And we were turning over about 18 million rand. Had a team of 6 people. We used to do promotions. So my mom still doesn't know what I do, doesn't understand it. So this is how I used to always explain. You know when you go to Spar and somebody's trying to make you taste chips?
Yes.
That girl in the aisle? That's a promoter. So we used to deploy
those promoters in this makes sense.
For different, to taverns, to Pick and Pays and all that. And it was 2014, and somehow I was struggling to pay rent. I was struggling to pay salaries. Revenues were starting to drop. And 2014, the 9 years. I think it was right in the middle of the 9 lost years, right? 2014, 2015. And it had happened before, but I always used to come out of it because revenues drop and,
Okay.
But now it's 3 months, you haven't paid rent, you're battering with your landlord, you haven't paid salaries, you normally used to pay them on.
And just to set some context here, you're a family man, you're a husband, you're a young parent with a young family, and business isn't going so well. So your responsibilities are really mounting up,
Huge,
right?
Right. And so when you are first used to pay salaries on the 25th, then you're paying them on the 28th, and then when you start to pay salaries on the 9th, you know that it's like a big problem. Right? And you're always calling the team in, guys, just understand.
Yeah.
People are feeling disgruntled and all this. The funny thing, though, I always used to say is kids don't wait for your business to succeed. They keep growing. So school fees,
still due.
People are moving from primary school, moving from creche to preschool, from preschool to primary school. So it means that everything is becoming more expensive. But still believing in the dream, And I remember it very well. It was the 11th of September.
Interesting date.
Exactly. Yeah, interesting date. I've got my own September 11th, 2015. I remember it very well. There was a deal of about 20 million rand, and we were gonna get it, and it was gonna solve all our problems. Those deals never come through. Like I've learned, the big ones, they never come through because somehow the universe or God tries to teach you a lesson that there are no phantom deals that happen.
Oh,
We pushed, and I was like, if this 20 bar just comes through,
your problems are
all
solved.
our problems are over. In fact, we're going away for Christmas as a family. And they phoned me and said, sorry, we've given the business to somebody else. And I parked my car. I was all alone, and I was like, shit, right? I am in big trouble.
Oh.
The business was laden with debt. At home, she didn't know how big the debt problem was. I had to go home and conversate and say why now we have to go through what we need to go through.
What did you go through? Loss of your property and that extreme?
Yes. So it was loss of, I had to sell a car, had to sort of like move out of the house we're staying in, stay with family.
That's huge, Bongani.
So all that is happening, but now, every Monday, I used to hate Mondays. I used to love Fridays.
Yeah?
Because Mondays, it's when the call centers from the banks and suppliers and everybody you owe money is very enthusiastic about where is our money, right? So I used to love weekends, but somehow my sleeping pattern started changing. I normally sleep late, so I'm a 10 o'clock to 5 o'clock sort of guy, but now I was pushing it to 12 midnight, and I was up at 3, and so I'm not having enough sleep.
So I'm assuming insomnia induced by stress,
exactly. So
anxiety.
All I wanted to do was to have millipap. That's all I was eating. I didn't feel like, so you're starting to lose appetite. I exercise, and I used to probably average like a 10K on a run. I couldn't even walk 2 kilometers, but I didn't know why, because I was just.
Bongani, that sounds like the D word.
I was just, exactly. But I didn't know, and it went on for 6 months. The worst part is I went to join a competitor because I needed to shut the business down. So I'm closing the business down this side, fighting debt this side, and now I'm in a new job here at a competitor who we used to bid on pitches.
Oh.
Right? And I remember the competitor had a tall building, and we used to park in the basement. And I remember once writing a post on my social media to say, I used to leave my heart in the car. Literally, I can even feel it now. And I used to go up with my head. And because I couldn't believe that that's where I was. I was not passionate about it. I'm very good at selling. I am brilliant. Put me in front, I will sell you that wine and you buy it now as much as we've already bought it, right? And I couldn't even make a phone call to clients. I was just out of it. I started having panic attacks. So I don't know that, oh, this is happening, right? I get home. There was a time I used to drive a nice 4x4 and I had to sell it at cost. At least it got me out of that debt.
Just a quick one. Were you not like talking to anyone, drinks with the boys, and saying to the guys, hold on, guys, actually, I'm, not feeling like myself right now?
So I think there's a point where when you're going through stuff, you speak to somebody, even your best friend gets to a point to say, dude, I've got my own family now. I need to so like you can't constantly
I get you.
phone, right? And because they're going through their own stuff, right? And none of my friends knew that it was depression. And I remember I'd get home. Now it was sleeping at 1, waking up at 3, right? There's some days where I'd be up the whole day. And I remember reading somewhere where it says depression is wanting to sleep when you're supposed to be up, and sleeping and wanting to be up when you're supposed to be sleeping. So the whole thing is turned upside down. During the day I want to sleep because I'm tired. I didn't sleep last night.
You expected to deliver, right?
Exactly.
So be creative.
So there's pressure coming through from the bosses. Then I remember one day my aunt says to me, "You're depressed." I'm not. She's like, no, your eyes are dilated. You're not, she came to visit. You're moving up and down. That's it. And I remember that time when everything was happening, we used to have prayer sessions with my parents in Malawi. And I would just cry and I would not stop. And my dad would be on the other side shouting, be a man. What's wrong with you? Like, you have to be a man, Bongani. Stop it. And I didn't know why I was crying. Like, I couldn't just stop crying. And then it would stop the prayer. Then the day would start because I was scared of the people that I owed money. And that time I didn't know that when you owe the bank money, you can always phone and negotiate, right? And for better terms. So it was all that pressure. And it got to a head where I had a panic attack at work. So I did double see a psychologist, 2 sessions and like leave.
Because you're probably thinking this is not working,
Exactly.
it's a waste of time.
Exactly. Like, why is it not working now, right? And I've spoken to you, I've told you my problem, solve it. And then, somebody recommended Akiso Clinic, actually it was my aunt. And then I went to see a psychiatrist. And she looked at me and she says, you know, you're going to kill yourself. I'm like, no. And it literally in her office, I'm like walking up and down, right? I'm like, I sit. She's like, let me tell you the signs that you're going to commit suicide if you don't check yourself in.
Whoa.
You're not stable. You're not coherent in your speech. You want to leave. You want to come back. Ultimately, it's leading to that. And I'm like, okay, I'll check in tomorrow. And my dad now knows I'm depressed because it's been diagnosed. So he's very supportive now. He's like, dude, I don't care. So I was like, Dad, I'm going to lose my job. It's the only thing that I've got that's helping me pay for the fees, pay for bills, and pay back a little bit of the debt that I've got.
Just on that, how far into the job were you, I guess, in terms of months?
It was about 5 months.
That's still fresh.
Right? And my dad's like, we don't care about the job. We care about you. You can always find another job. You're intelligent. I'm like, no. And I remember I made a mistake on a project at work. I was supposed to deliver something and it was just a mess. And I was so scared that my bosses were going to be shouting at me. And I remember planning it very well. I'm going to drive home and I'm going to kill myself. And I was driving home and I'm like, this is the night. I'm going to kill myself. I'm tired. I was like, you know, I was mentally, physically, emotionally exhausted. You know when you do Sweat 1000?
Yeah.
You know when you've had that work, but you're physically, but
finished.
Emotionally you're feeling, oh damn, but now imagine emotionally you're feeling tired like that, and mentally. So I'm like, I can't do this anymore. That's it.
Did you ever think about your wife, your kids, your family?
At the moment, no. I just want it all done. Because remember, even at home, there's pressure and I'm not being myself. So the kids are stressed, wife is stressed, and I'm just like, this is it. I don't want to do this anymore. And it was at night. I took painkillers and I drank them. And I remember very well, it was my 15-year-old son. He's 23. I can see this, right? I think it was split seconds. The painkillers in my stomach. It was my 23-year-old son. He's in Sandton on a date. And his girlfriend is telling him about her family and the dad. And then she asks, what about your dad? You never talk about your dad. And he just stops. Because he can't say that his dad killed himself. Because he's now going around with the stigma that his dad killed himself. So chances are he's probably inherited that gene of giving up. And it was that moment when I saw my son's face. Like, I have seen my son 23. He's 15 now. But I've seen him 23. I went to the toilet, put my fingers in my throat and vomited. And long story short, the next day we check in at Akiso Clinic. And I still got my iPad. I still got my laptop and my phone. And the doctor says, then just go home.
Exactly. Like, what are you doing?
Because I'm trying to do work. I'm like, she's like, I don't think it's not the point. Now, then they take my phone for 2 weeks.
And now you don't know
My
what to do with
laptop.
yourself, right? Because you're used to being busy and being occupied.
Exactly. And then I was put on suicide watch. They sedated me. I've never felt so peaceful.
Really?
I hadn't slept for months. So they sedated me for like 3 days in a row. And when I think about it, the more I slept, the more better I became. So I was in a Kiso clinic with, we joke about it as a family that I was in the Nata. And I think it's just the light side to it for 3 weeks. Then I came out as on heavy antidepressants and sleeping tablets. And I started putting my life together. The thing is, 2 days after I come out, I got fired.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
So your worst nightmare came true anyway?
Did. Oh, in South Africa, we call it mutual separation, right?
Oh, my goodness.
So there was a mutual separation, but I got fired.
Did that drip you deeper into a depression at all?
Actually not. Because I'm a person who believes that my fate is in my own hands. Sometimes my detriment, right? And I believe that I didn't need these people anymore. It's now time to face my life and sort it out and not depend on the job. It was a scary time, but I didn't get worse because the antidepressants were helping. And you're taught coping mechanism, exercise, always keep moving. I remember when they said, if you're sitting and you're having terrible thoughts, keep moving. I learned to love to iron.
Look at you,
I
going
would
back to being
iron
the domesticated man your mother taught you to be.
I would iron just to keep myself busy, not to think about what's going on. I would drop the kids off. And one thing that I decided to do was I was going to be employed in my head. So I would wake up, take the kids to shower, same time I would shower as if going to work, get into the car, drop the kids off, come sit on my laptop and start looking for employment.
Okay, so keeping yourself active,
So
productive,
I didn't
so that you don't...
slouch, and luckily, because I'm known in the industry, got a break through another agency, and I started getting better. But I remember somebody told me the power of exercise, and the fact that I never used to understand. When I used to run, I used to feel hyped, right? I was like, damn, I did 10Ks, 5Ks. And somebody said, no, actually, I thought to say what exercise does is it balances the depression hormones.
Endorphins, right?
Endorphins, yes. So it's all about chemical imbalance. So the more you exercise, the more the good chemicals are staying. And then I started running.
I want us to get there in a moment, because just this morning you were telling me about your endeavors to actually try to work out for 2 hours, and I was like, ooh, that's a bit tough. But I want to go back to, you're very open about your story, Bongani, and I think it's palpable. You know, I can, and it's scary to actually believe that you went through something like that, right? Because we always want the best for people that we know. And I think that reveals something that is quite prevalent in the industry, and I guess in South Africa and across the continent, really, about the pressures that black men usually face.
Yes.
I've got 2 older brothers,
Yes.
Lost one, but I'm well aware that they go through certain emotional changes that they can't easily express to someone like myself, because I would probably just be like, oh, well, you're the big brother, so solve it.
Yes.
Do black men talk enough about their emotions and the challenges they face?
No, we don't. You have to be a man. And society expects you to be a man. And sometimes, I guess, because of femicide, it's very difficult to have male conversations because we seem to be the perpetrators. So what's your problem? You have it well, you have it good, but we don't. We've got pressures. You sometimes, I'll use a silly example. Blessers and slay queens. Right?
Okay.
As a blesser, you always have to deliver. As a slay queen, just show up. The moment that you stop blessing, everything goes. So the slay queens are not going to be around anymore.
Yeah.
That's a frivolous example to use. Jay-Z's got this song where he talks about when the money goes, will they stay around?
Okay.
That's just how society is made up. Then it's a fight around, I don't even want to call them independent women. My wife is a very strong woman. My my son was asking me that time, why doesn't mommy use your surname? Because she's very clear that she's her own brand and that's who she is. But as a man, when you go home and they'll be like, Anandod.
Yeah.
I saw on LinkedIn that she's not Chinkanda. What's going on there?
Yeah.
You're not being a man. You're not leading in your home. I'm like, dude, like, you are some random uncle of mine, unemployed, probably I help you out, and you're asking me why my wife doesn't bloody use my surname.
Yeah.
But it's the pressures we face, right? It's the pressure of when dad's sick at home in Malawi. I'm the one, as the man. You can't say there's no plan.
You need to show up.
You know, and it's those pressures. I remember my parents helping me out with money, and I owed them for like such a long time. Like they owed me money, and my dad would just say, "Son, it's fine. You pay us when you're ready. Son, it's fine." You pay, and my kids want to be taken on holiday, and you in your head you owe people money. You owe your dad money. But your kids want to go on holiday, so things are starting to get better, but I don't know what you do. I remember I paid them full on at the beginning of the year. I was just so relieved. I was so relieved because, like, you can imagine owing your parents money.
I can.
And I hadn't been to Malawi for like 5 years because I couldn't afford to go to Malawi. My mother was like, "No, take the bus."
Some would say it's just around the corner. I was about to say.
Hell no, I won't take. I took the bus when I was in university, and my backside knows very well how that bus take. No disrespect, people take the bus,
but it's
the bus was not my portion.
A 2-day
anymore.
journey, I'm assuming.
No, of course. I mean, you leave that time when Park Station was Park Station and the Greyhound was still around. Travel the bus, go home. But lessons from the bus were there. Learn to interact with all sorts of people. I always tell my wife, I was like, are we raising aliens who don't understand? Because you grow up, you know, we're privileged to send our kids to good schools. So they don't interact like us. You know, you'd get a taxi, you'd get into a bus.
And you learn to be streetwise.
Exactly. And it worries me. But anyway.
I'm actually hearing for the first time, and I think it's often not discussed, especially at family tables, right? The way patriarchy actually works against men as well.
No,
as you say, because of those pressures. But look, I'm no expert. I don't know how we'll solve them. And maybe this is, you know, part of an ongoing conversation that people will have within their own family tables. But I completely understand, because I think that there are nuances as to how it affects not only family dynamics and relationships, but also romantic relationships. Marriages have often broken down because of these kind of pressures. And of course, I guess, with the rise of women becoming more independent, more astute, it's almost like, hold on, guy. I've invested in myself to show up, so you need to meet me halfway.
So I'll use an example. I always say, as a man, you don't have a choice to be a house husband. You can't wake up and say, it's tough at work, I'm thinking of being at home and looking after the kids.
Even if it's for your own mental well-being,
even
knowing that you've been there,
like I promise you now, you can't have that conversation on many family tables.
Okay.
Because people be like, Gugu. He's looking after who? You'd be like, no, but Mina, I'm going to work, I'm bringing the bacon, I'm speaking, interviewing people. No, we've calculated it. My speaking arrangement.
Even if it works, right?
They'll be like, you know what he's going to do? And you guys are good, eh? You've discussed it and you're cool. And you'll be like, you know what he's going to do? When you're at work, there's going to be a woman coming there. Trust. And
because it happens sometimes, right?
Fine, it does. But what I'm saying is, but we can't paint everybody with the same brush. So business failed. I remember feeling like not like I'm a dad. One day, I don't know, the bank that I bank with, somehow it used to debit things at different times. And I remember I had like $300 in my account and went to church. And they used to sell these nice donuts. And my kids always used to, after church, Papa. And I remember we had gotten these donuts and I swiped my card and it bounced. And my eldest son knew that nigga don't have money.
Oh.
I didn't say it that way. But I was just like, guys, my card is not working.
The ego took a knock.
And my son is like, no, I understand, I understand, Papa. Next time, you buy us next time. I felt crap. I was like, has this come down to it that I can't even buy donuts for 200 rand for my kids?
The pressure.
And my son was at camp this week, and he sent me a letter. We had to write him, and he wrote back. And it's funny how kids see you fighting, and he wrote to me to say, Papa, I admire you because you fight at a steady pace and you don't give up. And you know the one thing that I told myself, and this is a family table conversation about failure that anybody should know, is I've got this hashtag that I always say, stay in the fight. Stay in the fight.
Yeah.
Because when you think about it, champions, beat the box, Muhammad Ali, everybody, they became champions because what did they do? They stayed in the fight. They didn't give up. No matter, there were days it was hard. I remember picking up my wife at the airport. I think she had gone to Kenya or something.
Okay, this is gonna be a good one.
And she phones me, say, no, I'm landing at this time. So because Kenyan time and South African time is different, Kenya is ahead, right?
By an hour.
Yes. So she said I'm landing at 8. So me, I thought she's landing at 8. I left home. I calculated it. She lands at 8. International, what. 45 minutes, she's out.
Yeah.
Me, I leave home at 8. I'm driving there. It was late at night. Now, I don't have 10 rand to pay for parking at OR Tambo. What's very important, right, out of these conversations is we need to have, I think, a season on mental health.
I agree.
There needs to be conversations around people who've suffered from it, bring in some guys who can help us how people can recover from it, and share. Because I'm very passionate about it, in the sense that it's not a stigma. I speak about it. I survived depression and anxiety. I'm not depressed anymore. I've got ways that I cope. A friend of mine always laughs about my issues with, he says he calls it ADD, but it's not, like lack of focus. I think I still need to work on that.
I've seen that myself before, so
but
the friend is right.
But what I believe is that speaking about it is the beginning of the journey of healing. Society needs to accept that depression and anxiety is a disease, like cancer. And
I think more so black society, right? And I think it's both ways, because you're quite right about men and the pressures that you guys have been going through. I mean, we even see it in the suicide stats in South Africa, that majority of men actually struggle the most and are usually victims of suicide. But I also think it interlinks with the Mbogoto syndrome, right? Where women often feel like, okay, well, the man's not going to rise up to the occasion, so I'll be the rock, you know, I'll be independent, I'll be strong. I don't need a man to help me raise my kids. And it almost seems as though this disconnect is actually drawing a, the rift between us as black men and women.
I really think, I think those are conversations that we need to have here.
Yeah.
And further to that, my relationships between fathers and sons and fathers and daughters.
Tell us how you do it, because you were father of boys.
Yes, 3. I need a drink.
Why not work on having a baby girl then? Just
Why?
there.
Why?
Just there.
I know. Hey, I was like, 3 boys. Thank you, Siabonga.
Oh wow.
God bless. We are going into the sunset. On a serious note, I sometimes do lose my patience with them, but as a family, it's conversations we like to have. So there's cases of bullying at school. Sometimes there's fear and anxiety. COVID has been quite a disruptor at home. They're online, they're back at school, they're back online. One of them struggles quite a lot. And what I've done intentionally as myself is that I decided to open that my kids can talk to me about anything and everything.
Is it really easy though? Because let's be honest, it's one thing to say, so how was your day at school? And we all know how kids tend to respond, right?
It's not. It's very difficult, and sometimes I want to talk to you when you don't want to talk. I'm not saying I'm the perfect dad. I've got a hashtag life of a dad. I think dads is another conversation. Because I think black fathers,
they're important.
Black fathers.
Take it from a daddy's girl like myself. Black fathers are important.
Black fathers is another conversation, but it's important that they see you fighting. I always say some of the struggles that you go through in life are not for you, are for the people that you're responsible for. I believe some of my failures, my kids saw in me what it is for a man to fight. I saw it in my dad. My dad lost his job 3 times, but he picked himself up, picked the family up, and that's the spirit that I saw.
Resilience
and resilience, and you have to show that. So we have conversations. I dread some conversations that are coming, and I think, but I have to have them. Sex and sexuality is things that I need to be open about. If the topic comes, because
which it will,
and I hug, I say I love you, because they have to hear it from me. I'm Superman in their lives. I'm the guy that doesn't break, but they saw him broken.
Man, Bongani. Cheers to that.
Cheers.
I think that's something that needs to be celebrated, because like you say, you being Superman, I need to drink.
So it's a multitude of things. But to close off this topic that I'm very passionate about is to say depression and anxiety and any other mental health issues are diseases that can get either managed, healed. I'm totally healed. I'm not depressed at all. I haven't been depressed or had anxiety.
Do you ever fear that you might go back there though?
I do. And I think for me, my fight, and I always remember it's why I exercise sometimes, I think overly so, because it does help me manage. I do have fears. I do have anxieties, but I'm anxious, but I do not suffer from anxiety. I do become anxious about the future of our country, of my business, and I quickly, there's triggers that I've come to realize, and sometimes I see it when I'm too much on social media, when I'm watching too much news, when I'm having negative conversations. I actually feel my body starting to cave in. And I immediately get off social media a bit, stop watching the news. So there's things.
That's discipline there.
That yes, and I think there's things that I've put in place that I sort of realize I do not like having negative conversations with people. I will talk about how the ruling party is not doing such a great job, but I'm not gonna sit and go, let's talk. I don't, because and the one thing that they taught me at Akiso Clinic in Parktown, and I'm mentioning them, they're not sponsoring in any way, but I think it's one of the places that people can go and get help, is that always accept, and it's even in the Bible, that Lord, make me accept the things that I can control, and make me also accept the things that I can't.
Well, just on that, it's actually not in the Bible, right? Apparently, it's just a prayer.
Really?
So much for but we understand. But anyway, you come from a praying family.
Exactly. Amen. But anyway, I think for me it's about accepting the things that you don't have control over. You don't have control over the economy if you're not running it, right? You don't have control over what your aunt and uncle are doing. Like sometimes people phone you about even sometimes the fights your siblings are having with your parents. I sometimes separate myself from them. I'll be like, guys, sort your ish and then phone me. Because if I get into that, then it's my kids. Then I've still got a marriage that I need to work on every day, right? I've still got a business to run. I've still got all these things.
Yeah.
So if I want to control everything, it ends up being too much.
Exactly.
But then again, these are conversations that we want to have, right?
Right here.
Yes.
On the family table.
But now, to close off this episode, we've spoken a lot about me. And I believe we need to have a conversation about you. The person that interviews everybody and their friend and their colleague and everybody. Because people want to hear about you.
You think I've got a story to tell?
I believe everybody's got a story to tell.
Well, maybe we'll find out one day.
Surviving relationships could be one.
Anyway, Bongani, cheers to that.
Cheers.
Looking forward to more conversations here at our family table. Dessert can be served next time, right? That's one thing that people can know about me. I have a sweet tooth, so.
Hey,
Food.
no,
Dessert.
Dessert. Next time we're having dessert. Cool.